They say money answers all things, but for Chief Emeka, his billions were just useless paper against the silent enemy consuming his baby boy. What happens when a man who can fix anything meets a problem that science cannot solve? The solution was hiding in plain sight, carried by a girl with no shoes and no name. Watch how a forgotten remedy from the streets humbled a giant and revealed a secret that saved a dynasty. Hey there, pour a cup of tea, get comfy, and let your heart listen. The story's about to start. Welcome to Tales Vibe, where laughter and lessons flow together. If you love a good story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more tales every week. And please tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to know where our story family is tuning in from. Emeka sat alone in his large office. The room was silent, the only sound was the scratching of his gold pen against paper. He was signing a check for 50 million naira for a new business contract. To anyone else in the city, this moment would be a cause for celebration. It was a sign of success, power, and influence. But as Emeka looked at the many zeros on the paper, he felt nothing. There was no joy in his heart, only a heavy stone that made it hard to breathe. He pushed the check aside and put his head in his hands. His staff thought he was the luckiest man in Nigeria, but they did not know that he would gladly trade every naira in his bank account for just one thing: peace. He stood up and grabbed his car keys. He did not tell his secretary he was leaving. He just walked out. He needed to be home. When Emeka arrived at his mansion, the compound was quiet. Usually, he felt pride when he looked at his house. It was a masterpiece with white pillars and tall gates. Today, it just looked like a beautiful prison. He walked through the front door. The house was cold. There was no smell of jollof rice or soup cooking. There was no music. The servants moved silently in the hallway, avoiding his eyes. They knew the sorrow that hung over the house. Emeka walked up the stairs, his legs feeling heavy like lead. He walked straight to the nursery. The door was slightly open. Inside, the room was dim. His wife, Nneka, was sitting on a chair next to the baby's cot. She looked thin. She had not eaten a proper meal in days. Her beautiful face was swollen from crying. She did not even look up when Emeka entered. She just kept her hand on the baby's chest, feeling for a heartbeat. Emeka looked down at his son, Junior. The baby was 6 months old but looked smaller than a newborn. His skin was pale, and his breathing was shallow and fast. He looked fragile, like he might disappear if the wind blew too hard. Emeka closed his eyes, and a painful memory from yesterday rushed into his mind. He remembered standing in the office of the best specialist doctor in the country. The doctor, a man with gray hair and many degrees on the wall, had taken off his glasses and sighed. "Chief Emeka," the doctor had said quietly. "We have tested his blood. We have scanned his brain. We sent the results to laboratories in London and India. Physically, there is nothing wrong with him that we can see. But he is fading away. Modern medicine has limits, and we have reached ours. I am sorry. Take him home and pray." Emeka opened his eyes. The doctor's words were a curse. He was a man who could fix any business problem, buy any property, and solve any issue with a phone call. But here, in this quiet nursery, his money was useless paper. He was the richest man in the area, yet he stood helpless while his only son slipped away. The silence in the nursery did not last long. As the sun began to set outside, a sound pierced through the quiet mansion. It started as a low whimper, then grew into a sharp, piercing cry. Junior was awake, and he was in pain. Emeka watched his wife flinch as if the sound had physically hit her. Nneka stood up quickly and lifted the baby from the cot. She rocked him back and forth, humming a song, but Junior did not stop. His small body was hot, burning with a fever that no imported medicine could cool down. He twisted in her arms, fighting an invisible enemy. "Ndu, my baby, Ndu." Sorry, Nneka whispered, tears streaming down her face. But the crying only got louder. It echoed off the expensive walls, filling every corner of the room with misery. Suddenly, Nneka stopped rocking. She froze, trembling. She looked up at Emeka with wild eyes. The exhaustion and fear had finally broken her spirit. "Do something, Emeka," she screamed. Her voice was cracked and desperate. "You are standing there looking at me like a statue. Do something." Emeka took a step back, shocked. Nneka was a gentle, soft-spoken woman. He had never heard her raise her voice like this in all their years of marriage. "Nneka, I have done everything," Emeka said softly, his voice shaking. "I have paid the best doctors. I have bought the most expensive medicine. What else can I do?" "Then throw your money away," she yelled, clutching the screaming baby to her chest. "Burn this house. I don't care. Use your power. You are the great Chief Emeka, are you not? You fix problems for everyone outside, but in your own house, you are useless." The words hit Emeka like a slap to the face. He wanted to defend himself, but he knew she was right. He was useless here. The crying of his son and the anger of his wife were squeezing his heart until he felt he might explode. He could not stay in this room for one more second. The air felt too thin to breathe. Without saying another word, Emeka turned around and walked out of the nursery. He walked fast, almost running, down the grand staircase and out the front door. He jumped into his SUV and started the engine. He did not know where he was going. He just needed to drive. He drove aimlessly through the Victoria Island streets. The city lights blurred past him. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Finally, he pulled over on a quiet part of the bridge overlooking the lagoon. He turned off the engine and sat in the dark. "God," Emeka whispered into the silence of the car. "If you are there, please. I have money, but I am a beggar before you. Show me a way. Just show me a way." He sat there for a long time, listening to the cars pass by, unaware that his answer would not come from the sky or a hospital, but from the dirty roadside the very next day. The next afternoon, the heat in Lagos was unforgiving. The sun beat down on the roofs of cars as the traffic stood at a complete standstill. Emeka sat in the back of his tinted SUV, his head resting against the cool leather seat. His driver, Sunday, had been inching the car forward for the last hour, but they were trapped in a heavy go-slow near a busy market area. Usually, Emeka would be on his phone, making calls or checking emails. But today, his phone lay silent on the seat beside him. His mind was back at the mansion, in the dark nursery where his son's breathing was getting weaker by the hour. He felt like a prisoner in his own car, trapped by traffic just as his son's sickness trapped him. The prayer he had made on the bridge the night before still echoed in his mind, but he felt no hope. He sighed and looked out the window. The world outside was chaotic. Hawkers were running between cars selling plantain chips and cold water. People were shouting and arguing. It was noisy and dirty, a world far removed from his quiet, air-conditioned life. Then, something caught his eye. Under the shadow of a pedestrian bridge, just a few meters from his car window, a young girl sat on a small wooden stool. She looked about 15 years old. Her dress was faded and slightly torn at the hem, and her slippers were worn thin. She was not begging like the other street children. Instead, she was focused on a small mortar and pestle in her lap. Emeka watched, curious despite his sadness. Beside the girl sat an older market woman with a leg that looked angry and swollen. The woman was grimacing in pain, wiping sweat from her forehead. The girl, Ada, worked quickly. She took a handful of green leaves from a nylon bag, crushed them into a thick paste, and whispered something that looked like a prayer. With gentle hands, she applied the green paste to the woman's swollen leg. Emeka expected nothing to happen. He had seen traditional healers before and didn't think much of them. But as he watched, the market woman's face changed. The tight lines of pain around her eyes relaxed. She let out a long breath, her shoulders dropping. She touched the leg, then stood up tentatively. She smiled, a wide, genuine smile, and patted the girl's shoulder, blessing her. Emeka's heart skipped a beat. He had spent millions on specialists who couldn't bring a smile to his wife's face, yet here was a girl in torn clothes healing pain with nothing but leaves. "Sunday," Emeka said suddenly, his voice sharp. "Unlock the doors." "Sir?" the driver asked, confused. "Here? In this market? It is not safe." Unlock the door, Emeka commanded. He didn't care about the dirt or the danger. A desperate hope had sparked in his chest. Before Sunday could protest, the billionaire pushed open the door and stepped out into the heat and noise of the street, his eyes fixed on the girl under the bridge. Emeka ignored the honking horns and the stares of the passers-by. He walked straight to the girl under the bridge. Up close, Ada looked even younger. Her dress was stained with red earth, and her hands were rough from work. She looked up as the shadow of the tall man covered her, but she did not run. "Good afternoon, sir," Ada said, kneeling slightly in respect. Emeka went straight to the point. "What did you give that woman? The one with the bad leg?" "It is a mixture of leaves, sir," Ada replied softly. "My grandmother taught me. It takes away the fire in the body." Emeka felt a lump in his throat. He knelt down on the dusty ground, not caring about his expensive suit. "My son is sick. He is a baby. The doctors say they cannot help him. They say he is fading away. Can you look at him?" Ada's eyes widened. She looked at Emeka's shiny watch and the big car behind him. "Sir, I am just a street girl. I do not know book medicine. I only know roots and herbs." "I don't need book medicine," Emeka said, his voice breaking. "I have paid for all the books in the world, and they failed. Please, just come and see him." Ada looked into Emeka's eyes. She saw the fear there. It was the same fear she had seen in her grandmother's eyes before she died. She nodded slowly. "I will come, sir." Emeka led her to the SUV. Sunday, the driver, stared with his mouth open. "Oga," Sunday stammered, looking at Ada's dirty feet. "You want her?" "Inside the car." "Drive the car, Sunday," Emeka ordered sharply. Ada sat on the edge of the soft leather seat, afraid to lean back. She held her small nylon bag of herbs tight to her chest. The car was cold like a refrigerator, and it smelled of expensive perfume. She looked out the window as they drove through the big gates of the mansion. She had never seen a house this big. It looked like a castle from a story. When they entered the house, the air was silent. They walked into the grand living room with its marble floors and crystal chandelier. Ada felt small. Neka was coming down the stairs, holding an empty baby bottle. She stopped halfway when she saw Emeka standing with a dirty street girl. "Emeka." Neka's voice was weak. She looked at Ada's torn dress and the dust on her skin. "Who is this? Why did you bring a beggar into our house?" "She is not a beggar, Neka," Emeka said, stepping forward. "She is a healer. She is here to see Junior." Neka looked at her husband as if he had lost his mind. "A healer? A child from the gutter? Emeka, have you gone mad?" "I have not gone mad, Neka," Emeka said, his voice low but firm. He walked past his wife and gently took her hands. They were cold. "We have tried the best hospitals. We have tried prayer. We have tried everything. Just let her look. What do we have to lose?" Neka looked from her husband to the small girl standing by the door. Ada looked down at her feet, twisting the strap of her bag. Neka's shoulders slumped. She was too tired to fight. She simply stepped aside and waved her hand toward the nursery. "Wash your hands first," she whispered hoarsely. "Don't touch my son with dirty hands." Ada nodded quickly. She went to the guest bathroom, scrubbed her hands and arms with soap until they were clean, and then followed Emeka into the nursery. The room was freezing. The air conditioner was humming loudly, pumping cold air into the space. Ada shivered. To Emeka and Neka, this room was a sanctuary of comfort. To Ada, it felt like a tomb. She walked slowly toward the crib where baby Junior lay. She looked at his small, pale face. She did not touch him immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She smelled the expensive baby powder, the cleaning chemicals, and the medicine. But underneath all that, she smelled something else. Something old and sour. "The air here is heavy," Ada said softly. "It is the AC," Emeka said. "It keeps the room fresh." "No," Ada shook her head. "It is not fresh. It is hiding something." She turned away from the crib and walked around the room. She sniffed the curtains. She sniffed the carpet. Then, she stopped in front of a massive, heavy wooden wardrobe that stood against the far wall. It was filled with designer baby clothes that Junior had never worn. Ada leaned in close to the gap between the wardrobe and the wall. She wrinkled her nose. "Move this," she said, pointing at the heavy furniture. "The wardrobe?" Nneka asked, confused. "Why? It has been there since before he was born." "Please move it," Ada insisted, her voice stronger now. Emeka didn't argue. He called Sunday and the security guard. Together, they pushed the heavy wood. It scraped loudly against the floor as they pulled it away from the wall. As the wardrobe moved, a foul smell hit them instantly, like wet earth and rotting wood. Everyone gasped. The wall behind the wardrobe was not white like the rest of the room. It was covered in thick, black patches. Dark mold spread across the paint like a cancer, wet and ugly. "This is the enemy," Ada said, covering her nose with her hand. "The wall is crying poison. The baby breathes this poison all night. It goes into his chest. It goes into his blood. That is why the machines could not find it. The sickness is not in the baby. It is in the room." Nneka covered her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. "Oh my God," she sobbed. "We were poisoning him. We were killing him ourselves." Emeka stared at the black wall, his hands shaking. All his money, all his power, and the answer was hiding behind a piece of furniture in his own house. "Get him out," Emeka shouted, breaking the paralyzed silence in the room. "Take him out of this room now." Nneka did not need to be told twice. She grabbed Junior from the crib, shielding his face against her chest as if running through a fire. She ran out of the nursery, down the hallway, and into the guest wing on the other side of the huge house. Emeka slammed the nursery door shut, sealing the poison inside. "Where do we go from here?" Emeka asked, turning to Ada. He was breathing hard. The discovery of the mold had shaken him more than any business loss ever could. "The baby needs fresh air," Ada said calmly. "And he needs the leaves to wash the poison from his blood." She turned and walked toward the back door leading to the garden. Emeka followed her. The mansion's garden was manicured and beautiful, filled with imported flowers that looked nice but had no use. Ada ignored the roses and the lilies. She walked to the far edge of the compound, near the fence where the gardeners sometimes planted things for themselves. There, she found what she was looking for. She spotted a neem tree, which the locals called doganyaro, and a small bush of bitter leaf. To Emeka, they were just weeds. To Ada, they were life. She picked the leaves carefully, murmuring thanks to the plants. She stripped some bark from the neem tree. Then, she turned to Emeka. "I need hot water. And a small pot." They went to the kitchen. The chef, a man in a white uniform, looked offended as this dirty girl took over his clean workspace. He watched in disbelief as she washed the leaves and roots in the sink, then threw them into a pot of boiling water. Soon, a strong, earthy smell filled the kitchen. It didn't smell like food. It smelled like the forest after rain. It was bitter and sharp. Ada poured the dark green liquid into a small cup to cool. She also took some of the boiled leaves and mashed them into a warm, green paste. "It is ready," she said. They returned to the guest room. Nneka was sitting on the bed, holding Junior. The baby was still hot, his eyes half closed. When Nneka saw the dark green liquid, she pulled the baby back. "Emeka," she whispered, fear returning to her eyes. "This is a baby. His stomach is sensitive. What if this is too strong? What if it kills him?" Emeka looked at the cup in Ada's hand. It looked nothing like the pink, sweet-smelling syrups the doctors had prescribed. It looked primitive. But the pink syrups had failed. "Nneka," Emeka said gently. "The mold was killing him. This is the only thing left. Let her try." Nneka looked at her dying son, then slowly nodded. Ada stepped forward. She did not use a spoon. She dipped her clean finger into the liquid and let 3 drops fall into Junior's mouth. The baby made a face at the bitter taste, but he swallowed. Then, Ada took the warm green paste and rubbed it gently on his chest and back. The skin will drink the medicine too, Ada explained softly. Now we wait. How long? Emeka asked, watching the green paste dry on his son's chest. 3 days, sir, Ada replied, wiping her hands on a rag. The poison has gone deep. The leaves need time to chase it out. She picked up her small nylon bag, ready to return to the street. Emeka shook his head immediately. You are not going anywhere. You will stay here until my son is well. He called the house manager and ordered a room to be prepared for Ada in the boys' quarters behind the main house. He also ordered that she be given a proper meal, jollof rice and chicken, not leftovers. For the first time in months, Ada slept on a mattress instead of hard concrete, her belly full, listening to the hum of the city from a safe distance. The first day passed slowly. The silence in the guest room was terrifying for Nneka. She was used to Junior's crying. The quiet felt unnatural. She sat by the bed, watching his chest rise and fall. He was still weak, and the fever was still there, but something had changed. He was sleeping deeply. It was not the restless, twitching sleep of sickness, but the heavy slumber of a body trying to repair itself. By the second day, the smell of antiseptic in the room was gone, replaced by the earthy, bitter scent of the herbs. Ada came in 3 times, morning, afternoon, and night. She was like clockwork. She would gently clean Junior's tongue with a soft cloth, removing the white coating, then give him the bitter drops and reapply the paste. Emeka watched her on the second afternoon. She was focused and gentle, handling the billionaire's heir with the same care she had shown the market woman. Where are your parents, Ada? Emeka asked quietly from the doorway. Ada did not look up from her work. Her hands paused for a second, then continued rubbing the paste. They are gone, sir. My mother died when I was born. My father. I never knew him. It was just me and my grandmother until she passed last year. Emeka felt a sharp pang of guilt. He looked at this small girl, no older than 15, who was fighting to save his family while she had no family of her own. She was homeless, hungry, and alone, yet she had given them everything she had without asking for a price. You have been surviving alone on the streets? Emeka asked, his voice thick with emotion. I manage, sir, Ada said simply, standing up. God is faithful. She packed her things and left the room quietly. Emeka remained standing there, looking at his sleeping son and thinking about the girl who slept in the servants' quarters. He realized that while he was praying for his son to live, the person saving him was just trying to survive. The sun rose on the 3rd day, piercing through the heavy curtains of the mansion. Emeka woke up with a start. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding in his chest. The house was silent. For the past few months, the mornings had always begun with the sound of Junior crying or the sound of Nneka weeping. But today, there was nothing. The silence was heavy and terrifying. A cold fear gripped Emeka's stomach. Had the silence come because the battle was lost? He threw off his blanket and ran out of his bedroom. He didn't even put on his slippers. He sprinted down the hallway toward the guest wing, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He reached the door of the guest room and hesitated for a split second, afraid of what he might find on the other side. Then, he pushed the door open. He froze. Nneka was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her back was to the door. Her shoulders were shaking. Emeka's knees almost gave way. He thought she was sobbing in grief. Nneka, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Nneka turned around. Tears were streaming down her face, but her eyes were shining. She wasn't crying from sorrow, she was crying from relief. Look, Emeka, she choked out, pointing to the bundle in her arms. Look at him. Emeka stepped closer. Junior was not asleep. He was wide awake. His large brown eyes, which had been dull and glassy for weeks, were now bright and clear. He was clutching his feeding bottle with both hands, sucking greedily. Gulp, gulp, gulp. It was the most beautiful sound Emeka had ever heard. The baby finished the milk and pulled the bottle away. He looked at his father, blinked, and then, for the first time in months, a small gummy smile spread across his face. He let out a happy gurgle and reached his hands toward Emeka. Emeka fell to his knees beside the bed. He reached out with trembling hands and touched his son's forehead. It was cool. The burning fire was gone. The pale, grayish color of his skin had turned into a healthy, glowing brown. "He is back," Neka wept, kissing the baby's cheek over and over again. "Our son is back." Emeka buried his face in the bedsheets and wept. He cried like a child. The relief was so strong it felt like a physical weight being lifted off his shoulders. From the corner of the room, a quiet voice spoke. "The fever has broken, sir. The poison is gone." Emeka lifted his head. Ada was standing by the window, her hands clasped behind her back. She looked tired, but she was smiling a small, shy smile. She had stayed awake all night watching the baby so the parents could sleep. Emeka stood up. He looked at the healthy baby in his wife's arms, and then at the girl in the faded dress. He realized that the miracle he had prayed for on the bridge had been delivered by the hands of a street child. The morning of joy had finally come. Later that evening, the mood in the mansion had completely changed. The heavy curtain of sorrow was gone, replaced by light and laughter. Junior was sleeping peacefully in his crib, this time in a clean, mold-free room. Emeka called Ada into his private study. It was a room filled with leather books and awards, a place where he made deals worth billions. Ada stood by the door, looking small in the large room, clutching her worn nylon bag. Emeka walked to his desk and picked up a heavy leather satchel. He placed it on the coffee table in front of Ada. He unzipped it. Inside, thick bundles of Naira notes were stacked high. It was more money than most people would see in a lifetime. "Ada," Emeka said, his voice serious, "you did what 14 specialists could not do. You saved the heir of my family. This money is yours. Take it. I will also buy you a house in Lekki. I will buy you a car. Just tell me what you want, and it is done." Neka stood beside her husband, nodding. "Please, Ada. You are part of us now. Let us bless you." Ada looked at the open bag. She looked at the stacks of cash. For a girl who had slept under a bridge and fought for scraps of food, this was a fortune. It was freedom. She could buy anything she wanted. She could eat chicken every day. She could buy endless Ankara fabrics. But Ada did not reach for the bag. Instead, she slowly zipped it shut and pushed it gently back toward Emeka. Emeka was stunned. "Is it too small?" he asked, reaching for his checkbook. "I can double it." "No, sir," Ada said, shaking her head. "It is too much. But money finishes. If you give me this money, I will just be a street girl with money. When it finishes, I will be back under the bridge." "Then what do you want?" Emeka asked, confused. "Tell me." Ada stood straighter. Her eyes, usually shy, were now burning with a new fire. "I want to go to school, sir," she said clearly. "School?" Emeka repeated. "Yes, sir. I want to learn to read and write properly. I want to understand why the leaves work. I want to know the names of the bones and the blood." She looked at her hands. "My grandmother gave me the gift of the roots, but I need the gift of the books too. I want to be a real doctor. I want to help people like Junior, but I want to wear a white coat when I do it." The room went silent. Emeka stared at the girl. He had met politicians, businessmen, and kings who only asked him for money. Yet here was a homeless orphan refusing cash because she wanted knowledge. She did not want a fish. She wanted to learn how to fish. Emeka felt a lump in his throat. He realized that this girl was not just a healer. She was a diamond covered in dust. He walked around the table and placed his hands on her shoulders. "Put down your bag, Ada," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are not going back to the bridge. You are not taking this money. You are taking something better. From today, you are my daughter. And you will go to the best schools in the world." 6 months later, the scene at the prestigious Dowan College in Lekki was lively. It was visiting day. Luxury cars lined the parking lot, and parents carried coolers of home-cooked food to their children. Emeka stood by the trunk of his SUV, watching the students file out of the classrooms. He was not looking for a business partner or a client. He was looking for his daughter. Then he saw her. Ada walked out of the administrative building holding a stack of textbooks. She was wearing a crisp, ironed uniform, a white shirt and a pleated skirt. Her hair was neatly braided, and her skin glowed with health. She was chatting with two other girls, laughing at something one of them said. It was hard to believe this was the same girl who had sat under the pedestrian bridge with torn clothes and dirty feet just half a year ago. The dust of the streets was gone, washed away by love and opportunity. When Ada looked up and saw Emeka, her face lit up. She excused herself from her friends and ran toward the car. She didn't kneel in the dust anymore. She ran straight into Emeka's open arms for a hug. "Daddy," she said, her English now polished and confident. "I got an A in biology. The teacher said I know the plants better than the textbook." Emeka laughed, a deep, rumbling sound of pure happiness. "I am not surprised, my doctor. I am not surprised at all." Nneka stepped out of the back seat, holding Junior. The baby was now a chubby, energetic 1-year-old. He was standing on his own wobbling legs, holding onto his mother's wrapper. When he saw Ada, he squealed and reached out his little hands. "Sisi Ada." Nneka cheered as Ada took the baby, swinging him onto her hip with practiced ease. Junior buried his face in Ada's neck, giggling. Emeka stepped back and leaned against the car, watching them. He looked at Nneka, who was glowing with peace. He looked at Junior, who was strong and alive. And he looked at Ada, who had a future brighter than the morning sun. For years, Emeka had thought his legacy was his bank account. He thought his worth was measured in the buildings he owned and the contracts he signed. He had spent his life chasing numbers on a ledger. But as he watched the street girl turn scholar playing with the son she had saved, he realized the truth. His money had been helpless against death. It was humility, kindness, and the ancient wisdom of a poor girl that had saved his world. He had invested millions in businesses, but this investment in a young girl's life, was the only one that truly mattered. Emeka smiled, wiping a small tear from his eye. He had found his peace. The billionaire had saved the girl from poverty, but the girl had saved the billionaire from a life without meaning. And that's the end of today's tale. We hope it brought a smile, a thought, or a little bit of magic to your day. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to Tales Vibe for more weekly tales, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our story family all around the world. Until next time, keep your heart open, your imagination alive, and remember, laughter and lessons always go hand in hand. See you in the next story.